Let's go live. All right, it looks like I am live and ready to roll. So I am on Instagram and YouTube, so I will be going back and forth, back and forth. YouTube is still gearing up. So we're just going to give a little bit of time. I actually did not announce that I was going live on Instagram, but I'm here. I'm here. The marketing experts say you need to notify folks, and I get that, but there's just way too many platforms, y'all. So let's give it a moment. I think I'm good. Let's give Instagram just a moment. It's good to see y'all. Yeah, I try to do this, well, recently, I would say this year, to do one or two more extra than I normally do. But I had something that was on my heart and spirit that I wanted to share live. And I like doing lives. I like the interaction with y'all a lot. And I know I need to do more of these. I just haven't created the space to be able to do them. But here we are. Let's see. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. I wonder, can you actually hit the record button on these things? Let me see. Just in case we have some technical difficulties and I cannot upload it, I am recording using a lot of resources here, so hopefully the feed looks okay. But yeah, I just wanted to go live because there are some things that I've been noticing, and I'll be going again back and forth between Instagram is over there and then YouTube's over here. And yeah, I just been noticing something that I wanted to call out and share. Just something that I've been feeling into. And of course, this is my personal opinion based on my own reflections, my own experiences, and it's just kind of like a bird's eye view of what I sense is happening in the world right now. So take what resonates and leave the rest. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just coming on here to share a little bit about what I've been noticing is happening, sort of like in the collective a little bit. So I'm both here on Instagram and YouTube. And so this will not be uploaded on Instagram, but it will be uploaded on YouTube. So you can catch the replay if you'd like. But so I think I've said this a few times that I believe like a collective shift is happening. And you may have heard some, spiritual folks, maybe if you follow them or not, in the spiritual space say this, or maybe you haven't heard this before. Maybe this is the first time that you've heard this. And thank you for joining. Welcome, welcome. Feel free to let me know where you're joining in from the chat. And if you are the replay gang, let me know as well in the comments. But so I've been noticing that the world is not just going through a collective ascension. I believe it's getting there. So just hear me out. I also believe that it's going through a split, and some people might be left behind, and not in the way that we think about that concept of left behind. So I'm going to explain a little bit more in depth, but um, and so I want to interpret what I believe this actually means, being left behind. So this whole topic, I didn't even introduce, is really about the spiritual split is happening, and here's what no one's telling you about this spiritual split, and here's what I believe is happening, and I think it's quite an important time, and it's kind of like what a time to be alive right now, right? And so again, this is just my personal opinions, but like I was saying, I want to interpret what I believe is actually this actually means being left behind. based on what I'm sensing, because this impacts all of us in different ways on different levels. And so this split, I keep hitting the mic, but this split isn't about race, politics, or even class division, although it seems like that on the surface. It's not necessarily about left or right. This, in my pen, is completely spiritual. It's actually energetic. And so we're being asked during this time, and I'm talking about, I'm saying 2025, but I'm saying 2025 and beyond. So um, we're being asked to make a decision, not one that is rooted in fear, but in consciousness, right? And so in my mind, the real choice is spiritual. And so here's what I believe the decision actually is: it's love or hate, service to self or service to others, not performative service, not people pleasing, because you can see how some of this performative stuff is playing out in different aspects of the world right now, but service that honors your soul and the collective. Um, and so, if you've ever read the book called The Law of One, the raw material of the Law of One, and if you've read this, then you already know in which direction I'm kind of going. And but if you haven't heard about this book, it's a channeled text where this entity named Ra speaks on the core lessons we're here to learn on Earth, right? And offers mystical insights about creation, polarity, and spiritual evolution. It's quite interesting, if anything. I don't necessarily believe all the things in that book, but it actually serves its purpose in regards to what we're kind of here to do. And so the premise is this in the book: it says, we're here to evolve by making a clear and polarized decision. And that polarized decision is to walk the path of love, unity, and service to others, or to choose separation and self service. And so this is the metaphor I was thinking about as it relates to the world. Um, most of us only see the surface, right? And that's not judgment, it's just human, right? Until we start kind of like breaking away at those layers, we only see the surface. And so, for example, this is the metaphor: you see a tree, right? But if you come a little closer, you start to see the leaves. Then, if you come a little bit closer, you begin to see the branches. And if you dig deeper enough, and you start to see the roots. And if you follow those roots deeper than the eye can see, then you can even see sort of the depths and the truth of it all, right? And so, what's being asked of us right now isn't visible on the surface. It's spiritual, it's very subtle, it's energetic. And so, the split is starting to reveal who sees the tree and who's willing to go down the roots. It's all gonna come together. I swear it's all gonna come together. And so this war isn't what we think, right? Many of us think that, again, the fight is black and white. Many of us think the fight is Republican versus Democrat, rich versus poor. But if you move a little closer, you realize the real war is much deeper than our minds can actually comprehend. And that's where I believe the split is happening. And some of us are still, and again, this is not a judgment call. This is, again, my interpretation. Some of us are still stuck in the surface level battles, but others are starting to feel a much, much deeper call. And so it comes down to the power of decision. And so the split isn't about being chosen or rejected, it's about what you decide. Okay. And here's the part I want to be very clear on. You know, I'm not here to convince you on anything. You have free will, absolute free will. We all do. But this lifetime is asking you to choose. How do I want to show up? What energy do I want to align with? And so My personal choice, for me, that choice, my choice is love over hate. And I came to this realization back in 2020 when things were like going wild. And I realized I was very much entangled in a lot of hate, and it wasn't making me feel good. And I started to trace back the roots of my hatred, right? And sometimes this hatred can be disguised as self advocacy, it could be disguised as justice, right? And so it could be a very slippery slope. And then you start looking like the people on the other side of that hate. And so I stopped, like, I just got tired of feeling that way. And so I was like, okay, what would it mean for me to look through a different lens and, and just explore that? Because I didn't want to come from that place anymore. And I'll be real, that path hasn't been easy because I had so many questions, and I was so confused at the time. Um, and needless to say, like, there are times where I still get frustrated with humanity in general, with all the decisions and all the things. And only because justice and fairness matter to me so deeply. You know, as a mom, as a woman, as someone who values integrity. So sometimes I get caught up in those entanglements and I have to pull myself back. I get irritated, right? Even on just little things like someone cutting me in line, and I get heartbroken by the big things like manipulation, violence, cruelty, all those things. And that's just part of the human experience. And so as we sort of go on this path of how intense this world is becoming, and I'm going to get into that, the what I believe is also happening, the intensity of the energies on the earth right now and all the just wild things that are just happening in all aspects, right? But, you know, I want to preface say, like, I'm not some monk. I'm not sitting in neutrality, in pure neutrality. Because I feel like if you're in pure neutrality, almost like you just ascended in a certain way. But I do my best, again, to not get hijacked by the chaos of the world, to stay grounded in as much love as I can, even when it's hard. And there are times where I don't always do that, right? And I have to, like, pedal back and be like, okay, what was that really about? And how much of this matters? And I have to do my own self reflection and repair work. But I talked about this not too long ago, about how I believe the world is going through the dark night of the soul. So all this immense chaos that is happening, um, the natural disasters, the wars, there's just really bizarre decisions that are being made often on our behalf, and the lack of control that we're feeling. And it kind of mirrors what happens to us when we're experiencing our own challenges, right? When we're going through our own dark nights of the soul, when we're being invited to transmute some of our own traumas and all that stuff. And in this process, on a collective level, the unfortunate truth is that there are casualties in this collective split. And even in those casualties, I believe that that's how often how transformation begins, right? And so it's a hard pill to swallow, because there's this realization that, like, oh, all these challenges that are happening in my life are part of is an invitation for me to let go of certain things and belief systems, and let go of a version of myself that is no longer working or no longer nourishing, right? And so again, so if you think about your own life, what usually happens before a breakthrough, right? Setback after setback, like, things just, everything starts to go wrong, right? Let me move this a little bit because there's too much lighting over here. I probably should close the window. But, like, there's a total unraveling that happens to many of us when we're experiencing back-to-back challenges, and I feel like on a collective level that's what's happening in the world right now. Because on an individual level, the real you is begging to be seen, to shed false identities, like I said before, to kind of wake up, like, and sort of whatever trapped illusion that you might be trapped in at the time. And so again, this is what Carl Jung calls the dark night of the soul. And I believe that's where we are collectively right now. The humanity is being invited to shed, is being invited to choose which path they're going on. And so the planet to me is having a spiritual reaction to all of the things that are happening, because there is definitely an imbalance of those who are in service to self versus in service to others. And so I believe the earth is having this really severe allergic reaction to it all. And, what happens to your body when it rejects something toxic? You kind of go through a detox emotionally, physically, maybe even spiritually, depending on what it is. So I feel like that's what's happening in the earth, right? And so, just looking at the chat here. And I believe that's what all the chaos is, the wars, again, the disasters, the politics. It's like the biggest purge before healing actually takes place. Now, I'm not sure how long this purge is going to last, you know, but it's happening. And it's not something that we can stop or prevent from happening, because we're all being faced with different levels of it, right? Whether people who have lost their jobs, and it's terrifying to know like you had that security and now that security is gone. On the flip side, it could also be an invitation. Obviously, I don't know what is going on in people's lives specifically, but I know when I left my job, I was burnt out, and I actually needed, like, my life had to collapse before I could finally make the decision to say, oh, I need to walk away from this because my health was in jeopardy, right? And in retrospect, like, that was very scary. But now I'm like, oh my God, that was the best thing that happened to me. So it's kind of hard to see the silver lining in a lot of this chaos, because a lot of it doesn't make sense right now. And I believe everything comes full circle. And I also believe that none of this stuff is happening in vain. It just, I can't wrap my head around that this stuff is happening in vain. Like, I do believe in God. I believe in one source creator, and it's not about religion. It's just about the fact that, like, all these casualties aren't happening by chance, but for no reason, right? And I do believe that there is something at the end of this end, right? I had a client say to me, she was actually experiencing some challenges. Actually, probably, um, she was actually experiencing some challenges, and I said to her, it's a cliche thing that we usually say to a lot of people, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And she said, I heard this from someplace else, that to find the light within the tunnel, to find the universe or God within the darkness, even before you get to the end of the tunnel. And I was like, oh wow, that's a very powerful way to kind of view things, especially when you're in the midst of like some really, really intense changes. And so there are three groups that are going to be part of the split, in my personal opinion, and this is what I see. Some people are fully in service to themselves, and we know who they are. We know who some of those people are. Some are aligned with darkness, and it shows, right? And I want to say that this isn't like the opposite of things. So, and what I mean by that is that all of this is a varying degree. Sometimes we think the opposite of light is dark. And so if you're in the light, you're never going to be in the dark, because it's the opposite. I don't believe that. I believe that it is a spectrum, it's a degree. And sometimes we're 1 degree away from either the light or 1 degree away from the darkness, depending on the circumstances, depending on the context, depending on what happens in our lives. It's not too difficult to fall. Hey there. Oh yeah, I remember you. I remember you. I think it was Quebec Beauty. It's good to see you. But yeah, I feel like, so we're on this like degree, and it's just one end to the other end. That's it. It's not necessarily opposites. And so some people, again, are fully in service to themselves, and we know who they are. Some are aligned with the darkness, and it shows. And then, but the majority, I feel like, are stuck in emotional and also spiritual limbo. Um, oops, whatever that means to you, right? And so, when you're stuck in that emotional limbo, we can even take the spiritual out of it, but it's hard to do that. Often feel powerless. So there's a group of us that are starting to feel really, really powerless right now. And we feel hijacked, we feel confused, we feel mistrustful. And so as a result of all that, some of us may be staying small, balled up, or kind of like frozen, like our nervous system is like all jacked up based on all this chaos because we don't know which way to move. And then even in the midst of this chaos, some people might even be thriving in different ways, right? And so there might be some guilt in that because like life is actually pretty good. And um and so I feel guilty for actually experiencing the beauty of life even in the midst of this chaos. And this is why I say it's such a varying degree. What's going on, CJ? Been a minute. And so but it's just something to kind of like be mindful of, okay, where am I in this space? And so when I say that some people will be left behind in this split, it, it's like, so when this split happens, it's not like a physical, like the earth is not like physically separating, it's energetically um, left behind. What I mean is in their fears, right? So if you're hijacked, because a lot of people out there, if you notice, there's a lot of doom and gloom being shown to us. Like it feels really scary, and I can't fall into that fear because then it goes against everything else that I believe in, which is like there is a bigger power at play, right? That will eventually help neutralize a lot of these things that are happening. Like I really believe that because then if I didn't believe that, again, then our lives would be in vain, right? And I don't believe that. I believe that each one of us serve a purpose here in different ways. And so when I say that people are going to be left behind, some people are going to be left behind in their fears. Some people are going to get so hijacked by what they see on the surface. As I said, the tree analogy. And then if you watch the replay, you can go back to what I mean. What's going on, Sean? It's good to see you. If you watch the replay, you can go back and see what I mean by the tree analogy. Um, some of us may just see the surface. I'm just talking about the split that I think is happening spiritually right now. But some of us will go in the deeper in the roots and see what this is really truly about. And so some people are going to be left behind in their fears. They're going to be left behind in their negativity, in their hate, and in their service to self. And that's what I'm feeling and that's what I'm seeing. And the book, The Law of One, echoes this. It says that you must decide because policies won't necessarily save us, right? Because on the other side of the whoever is making that policy, are they in service to self or service to others, right? Are they coming from love or are they coming from hate, right? And there's no ambiguity in that. Like you almost have to decide because if you are ambiguous about all of that, your life will reflect that ambiguity. Anybody else have trouble with that word? Ambiguity. Anyway, um, because again, if the people who are writing these policies are full of hate and disconnection, then how does that serve the greater good? It doesn't. Everything right now is trying to be rebalanced because the universe is about balance and not uh, not the idea of like self care balance, but energetic balance. Oh, what's going on, Lily? And so, because all of this chaos that's happening in the world, it's teetering us off balance. And so the planet is responding. Yeah, not too long ago, me and my partner were caught in this 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Bangkok, Thailand. And it's like the earth is like doing its best to hold all of these intense frequencies that a lot of it is just rooted in fear and hate and negativity. And I'm not saying to slap on some positive mindset hack. I'm not saying any of that. Um, what I'm saying is that we're within ourselves because the world is just a reflection of our internal world. So it's like, okay, where within myself do I need to do a bit more healing? Because that healing is going to actually help recalibrate these intensities that are happening. And so when I say people are going to be left behind, they're really just going to be left behind in their hate and their negativity. That is all. And so anger isn't the enemy, it's but it can be a destination if we're not careful. Anger is useful. It's a beautiful emotion because it helps you reconnect with your own personal power. It helps sometimes activate action within yourself. So use that anger in a way to channel the person that you would like to be in the world that you'd like to live in. Sometimes some of us are just getting angry and we're just like running into chaos. People like, setting Teslas on fire, all those things. Like people are out here wilding out with their anger. And that's not very useful to us on the long run. I mean, obviously everyone has their own individual journey and they kind of need to figure that out on their own. Like I can't help with that process. No one can help with that process. And you'll find that like people are getting reckless with their anger. And a lot of us are stuck in that anger. Um, anger, it's powerful. It is uh, catalytic, right? It helps us create boundaries. It protects. Anger shows us where the imbalance is happening, and it helps us use our voice in a way that's more empowering. But if we stay stuck there without integrating the wisdom from the anger, oh, it becomes poison. It becomes absolute poison, right? And so, I don't know if anyone's read the book by I think it's David E. Hawkins or David R. Hawkins. Anyway, he talks about the map of consciousness. Yeah, stuck in the loop of being reactive versus proactive, 100%. Because we can react all day long. And what that does over time is just chronic stress, right? We're in chronic stress mode. Our nervous systems are being wrecked by that hijack, by that reactivity. And the most beautiful thing and the most powerful thing that you can do is like, how do I remain neutral in the state of all this? And it being neutral doesn't mean that you're bypassing. It doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge the things that are happening. It just means that you're not allowing something to take you out of your center. And I can't say that I'm 100%, like I do this 100%. I'd be in some monastery as a monk, right? I'm still human, and there are moments where I kind of get out of there and I have to bring myself back. Because if you're constantly like getting hijacked and being thrown out of your center, how do you kind of stay connected to who you are underneath all of that? Like you just can't. It gets really confusing because once you get pulled into one direction, you're gonna get pulled into another direction. And what happens is that you become fragmented with all this stuff that's happening. And then you wake up one day and you're like, who am I? And where did all these emotions come from? And that's what happened to me in 2020 when I woke up and I was like, why is there so much hate in my heart? Why? And sometimes that hate or that anger, some of it, sometimes it's protecting us, right? It's protecting us from something. And so it worked when it needed to work, kind of. It just was no longer useful for me moving forward in sort of the direction that I was going and the kind of person that I wanted to become. And again, we're 1 degree away from it all. Well, as much as we like to just blame and judge people for their actions, even those people who set the Teslas on fire or the guy that recently burned, I think, that governor's home, we're all 1 degree away from it. Like no one's exempt from these emotions. And so it's like that constant check-in within yourself. It's like, where is this coming from? Whose voices are in my head that's telling me that this is the way and this is the path? Is it rooted in fear? If it's rooted in fear, you already know that goes against the original design. It's not going to work, not for the long run. But anyway, back to the map of consciousness. If you ever read that book, he really illustrates it beautifully on the scale of emotions. And I wish I could actually show it to you now, but you can Google it, map of consciousness. And on his scale, anger is actually higher than despair. So it's not a bad thing because feeling despair and hopelessness is almost total inactivity. But if you feel anger, maybe you're moving, maybe there's some activity going on. um, Again, because at least in anger your energy is moving, in despair your energy is not moving. And so we're not meant to live in anger. There are so many levels beyond it: courage, forgiveness, love, peace, all of those things. And sometimes we're going to be invited to come back to those over and over again in different various points in our lives, right? And sometimes there are points in our lives where we feel really confident about being able to do that. And there are points where in our lives where we're like, something happens and we kind of collapse. But I believe if you have a strong foundation, even within the collapse, you don't stay there long. You're able to come out of it. I kind of think about my aunt, who I love dearly and learned a lot from her. She has so much integrity. She's such a beautiful human. And she's one of the most generous, loving people that I know. But I see she's so riddled with anger and resentment of the things that happened in her life. Rightfully so. Like, some stuff that went on in her life are wild. And I get where that comes from. But I also am heartbroken at the idea that that's maybe how she's going to live the rest of her life, in that anger and in that resentment. And and I believe the one thing that would set her free is that forgiveness. But she can't access it, right? Maybe not in this lifetime. We all have things that we need to learn in this lifetime. And so if we don't learn those things, I mean, I believe that we're all here because we didn't learn some, or this place wouldn't exist, right? This planet wouldn't exist if we actually learned everything that we need to learn. Granted, there are some people I believe that come down here just to help us out. So maybe they learned their thing, but they're kind of sacrificing themselves to help us humanity out. But but the way that we sort of free ourselves from this karmic loop, or this sort of like this split that's about to happen, is through the choice, the decision. And that's why this decision is so personal. The decision you're being asked to make right now, even if it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm not even going to say even if it's uncomfortable. It is going to be uncomfortable. It's the decision that I believe will free not just you, but all of humanity, in bits and bits and bits, right? Because everything is energetic and everything ripples. And again, so when you heal, you reach others and the circle grows and it starts to permeate. And I always think of Ram Dass, like whenever the world goes crazy, and I just go back to Ram Dass, and he just says the work is for me to create a space or an environment where you can free yourself through me and I could free myself through you. And if we get into circumstances or situations where we get entangled with other people in ways that doesn't allow us to be free, then we know that we have to reevaluate that. We have to self-reflect and think about, like, okay, what part of this dynamic is no longer working, right? And because I strongly believe that we're all here to help each other get free. I really believe that. And there are some, you know, situations or people that are here that are might make that a lot more difficult. And it's not to come from a fear place, because I feel like we're all just here to learn something and then go about our business. But again, so everything to me is about balance. Even those who live in service to self, they're still being invited to remember love. So all the people who are sort of teetering the balance, that is sort of causing a lot of this chaos, and not to blame, because I feel like we're all complicit in different ways. We might not be able to admit that complicit nature of ourselves, because we all impact each other, right? And so it's like when I think of and Ram Dass says this, he's like, in one of his talks, he talks about how spiritually enlightened he's supposed to be, yet, and how much he cares about the environment and all these things, but yet he's getting on these planes to have these conversations, right? There's a complicit nature of being human that I think if we begin to accept, it'll allow us to heal deeper. But that's another topic for another day. But again, I feel like we're just being invited to remember love, because those people who are in service to self, the ones that were like, I can't believe they're making those decisions, I can't believe they're doing all that stuff, they're stuck in their own karmic loops, right? They just haven't accessed that part of themselves that remembers that truth. And when we see them exhibiting those kinds of behaviors where they're kind of like, man, why they do that? And then we get caught up in their entanglements, then we become a part of that in some shape or form. And so my hope is that again, that we all free ourselves, that we stop repeating the same karmic cycles of death, suffering, and forgetting and all that stuff, that we stop mistaking chaos for power and start remembering who we really are. Because I'm telling you, hold on tight. This ascension is wild right now. Um, the split is wild. Uh, but I don't believe that you'll be left behind if you start confronting some of the fears, some of the traumas, and some of the things that are keeping you rooted in fear, anger, those low vibrational energies. And I say low vibrational not out of judgment, but just like that stuff is heavy, right? We have to transmute it. And so here's my final take because I'm about to wrap this up. I did this live and the cleaners are coming soon. And I've been up since 4:30 this morning because I had a client. So I'm a little sleepy. But you might wonder, how are some people at peace in the middle of this chaos? I think I mentioned some of that already. How are they still grounded, loving, and even joyful? Because you'll meet those people, you're like, you wilding right now because do you know what just happened? And you're over here just like, if you're okay, you're okay right now. And I don't think people are necessarily okay with what's going on, but there are some people who are very grounded right now, and it's because they've made their decision, they've chosen already, and not success by like the matrix definition, but alignment, clarity, and peace. They've chosen those things already. They've chosen love. It's like the monk meditating in the middle of the traffic, half smiling, right? Eyes closed, stillness, and the chaos. There are some people who are still in this chaos. Um, I'm not saying become the monk, but don't be surprised when you start seeing this level of separation show up. And, I encourage you try not to judge it. That's what I'm working on too, not throwing my judgments around. And some days are better than others. But when you see that, know the split is happening. Some people are going here and some people are going there. And use it as a reflection to turn inwards and heal deeply. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about all this. What are you feeling? What are you choosing? Drop in the comments because I'm about to end. And let me know if this stirred something within you and share it. We need more people tuning in versus checking out because it's very easy to check out of all this stuff. But it's a reminder that we're kind of all together in this. And but at the end of the day, we still have to choose. We still have to choose. And I'm not gonna go into what that choice is. Just watch the replay and you get all the deets. Um, but the power of decision is that's where our power lies. The split again is about what you decide. And I just want to clarify this though. Um, the question is again, how do you want to show up, and what energy do you want to align yourself? And so, when I say service to others, I don't mean abandoning yourself. I don't mean self-sacrificing your well-being, your boundaries, or your joy in the name of something or someone else. It means showing up with love without losing yourself in the process. It means showing up into this chaos without getting totally entangled. It's about returning to wholeness because the more that you return to wholeness, the more this whole world becomes whole in a sense. And the more whole this world becomes essentially. And so true service comes from overflow, not depletion. It's rooted in love and not martyrdom. Like a lot of us are, some of us might be out there being martyrs, and that's not helpful either. And so the reason, again, the world is where it's right now is because we've forgotten that balance. Everything is out of alignment. So, yes, serve others, but not at the cost of your soul because you matter too. And your healing is part of the collective healing. But that's all I got. Again, let me know in the comments. First, let me know if you're part of Replay Gang. This is not being saved on Instagram. It will be saved on YouTube, so feel free to check out the replay there. And yeah, I'll see y'all on the other side of change. It's wild times. And just be sure to make a decision quickly. Quickly. All right. Um, love y'all. Take care of yourselves.